Hello. Today, I'd like to talk about the rebirth of a river. There's a river in California, and it goes into Oregon. It's on the border, called the Klamath River. Klamath. And it's part of a very interesting story to me. Might be interesting to you too. So that's why I wanted to talk about it today. The Klamath River is a river that flows into the Pacific Ocean, and it goes through some pretty rugged mountains on the California coast. It comes from Oregon though. And what's interesting about it to me is that last October of 2024, the fourth dam was removed. The 4 out of 4 dams were removed in the California portion. Now, I say that as sort of an asterisk, that when I kept reading these stories about the dams being removed, the stories made it seem like all of the dams were removed on the river. And even when I look it up and ask AI, are there still dams on the river? It says they were all removed, but that's not true. There are dams further up in Oregon where there's lakes and reservoirs and irrigation to farmland. Now that becomes more important later on in the story that I'm going to tell. So the story of the Klamath River really begins well before humans arrived here. Now let's see, when did humans arrive in North America? I'm not sure. Humans are around 300,000 years old. That's how long we've been around on this earth, which is 4.5 billion years old. Billion! So 4.5 billion is 4,500 million years. And we've been around 0.3 million years. So we've been around for 0.3 out of the 4,500 million years that the Earth has existed. And life has existed on land for, well, animals walking around on land have been around on this planet for 390 million years. First one was an amphibian that lived in the ocean or a river or something, and then would walk on land, but wouldn't spend his whole life on land. The first reptile to spend all its life on land, lay its eggs and everything on land, was about 350 million years ago. Now, keep in mind, humans have only been around for 0.3 million years. Well, when did humans first come to North America? I'd have to look it up. It's thought that the first humans came over here when the ocean levels were lower. A lot of the water in the oceans was tied up in ice because it was an ice age, and there is a land that connected between Siberia, Russia, and Alaska, called Beringia. And there was a land bridge that went across there. And so when was that? I don't know when that was. I don't know if that was like 70,000 years ago. Definitely 30,000 years ago. I think there's evidence of people living here. Like tools and stone tools and and things like that. But I don't remember exactly when the first humans came. And that's it's just an interesting story, because there's evidence that people that inhabited Easter Island, so they were sailors from the Polynesian islands. They navigated using stars and bird migratory patterns. This is so cool. One of the stories is that they would watch the birds every year when the birds crossed the ocean, and then they would sail to where they last tracked the birds to, and then they'd sail home, and then the next year they would start out a little earlier and then go to where they predict the birds will be, and then follow them for as long as they can, and then they go back home, and then they can predict where the birds were headed, and then they sail there, not knowing when they will actually hit the land. And that's how they found a lot of islands, like Easter Island, which is like very remote. And there's evidence that the inhabitants of Easter Island communicated with South America, Chile, and maybe Ecuador, but like the Peru, yeah, maybe, but the South American coast. So when did humans first arrive on the North or South American continents? I think that's up for debate, but a while ago. I think human migration, the story of human migration, is fascinating. Well, what was the Klamath River like before humans came? Well, there were no dams. The river, the water flows with rainstorms. It swells and it could flood its banks, but it flows through really rugged mountains. So maybe there would be some flooding in some areas, but it's mainly in a mountain valley the whole time. So I don't think it would flood much. Maybe in Oregon, where the land is a little flatter. It's kind of like a big valley. That's where all the farmland is. But we'll come back to that later. So before humans, the waters would flow unimpeded, and they would swell or dry up depending on the season, and the snow melt. There's a lot of mountains in that area, and I don't know how much snow they get down in Northern California, the ones that are towards the coast. But I think the river definitely gets fed by snow melt farther east. There are some big mountains towards the east. Sierra Nevadas, and you get the Cascade Mountains. Definitely have snow there. And when that snow melts, the water goes into the river. So you got unimpeded flow that ebbs. It can swell or it can dry up, but there's no dams. You've got trees, you've got shrubs, you've got insects, you've got fish. There's a particular fish that's very interesting that lives in the Klamath River, Chinook salmon. And the salmon is an integral part to the story and to this ecosystem, this river ecosystem. So the salmon are interesting. They're born in fresh water, and lots of them are born when the mother lays eggs, and then the father sprays his sperm over the eggs, and then the mother tries to hide the eggs under something, and then the parents die. That is an integral part to the life cycle. So the parents, they die, and their body decomposes and is eaten. Well, is eaten or decomposes. So they only have babies once and they die. But what happens is insects, birds, other fish, bears, all these other animals, they eat the body of the mommy and daddy. And if they can get there, if they can get the opportunity, they'll eat the baby eggs too. And in that way, the mommy and daddy, they bring these nutrients from the ocean, nitrogen and phosphorus, which is hard to come by way up in the mountains. So the fish, the salmon, the mommy and daddy, they literally bring life in their body. Nitrogen, phosphorus, that the ecosystems need, the animals, the plants need. Their bodies decompose, the water carries those valuable nutrients, and the plants take it up. You can detect nitrogen and phosphorus from the ocean hundreds of feet away from the river or stream where the salmon died, because the plants, the roots take it up. The animals, they carry it away from the water to eat and leave the rest of the body, and the insects eat them, and the insects are eaten by other animals, and then the trees, they soak up the nutrients. So the salmon, they bring these things from the ocean for all of the life in the forest that surrounds the river. Not just animals, insects, fungi, but also trees and shrubs and bushes, ferns, grasses. When you have a healthy cycle like that, where the Chinook salmon, mommy and daddy, bring life-giving nutrients from the ocean, it makes the whole ecosystem healthier. It also makes the baby salmon healthier. When they hatch, there's a lot of baby salmon. A lot of them die before they ever make it to the ocean and become adults. They're eaten when they're still an egg by birds, insects. When they hatch, they're very small and vulnerable. They're eaten by other fish, by birds, insects. Only a small fraction of the baby salmon actually make it to swim downstream to the ocean, where they live their juvenile and adult life. But when they have a healthy ecosystem with the nutrients that their mommy and daddy provided to everyone living there, the babies are stronger too. Indirectly, their mother and father provided them what they needed to be strong. The ones that survive, they swim out to the ocean, and they live, I don't know how many years, but I think it's like 4 or 5 years. I think each salmon is a little different in when they return. I think some return after a couple years and some return after like 5 years. But there's like a rhythm to it. And the interesting thing is they return to the same river where they're born. They somehow remember where they came from. That's really interesting. How do they remember? How do they navigate? Because they go out into the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is huge. How do they remember where to come back to and what river to swim up? And then how do they remember all the turns and branches and tributaries of the river to return to approximately where they were born? I think that's remarkable. They don't have a Garmin GPS satellite device like I do to navigate trails. They don't have an iPhone with Google Maps on it and a lady saying, "Left turn at this river branch, you have arrived." They can't call an Uber. Somehow they know how to get back. I think that's really, really cool. Well, humans came, now I don't know when exactly, maybe 30, maybe 70,000 years ago, not sure. But humans notice this, what's called a salmon run. It's when the salmon runs back to its spawning grounds, where spawning means laying the eggs and fertilizing them. So they're called the salmon runs, and the rivers have the salmon come back in the fall, late summer and fall. Different types of salmon come back at different times of the year. And the people that lived here, the Native Americans, the first people that lived in America, the original inhabitants. So, when most American, United States citizens say, "Go back to your country," in a very ignorant way, they should say that to the mirror, because they're not the original inhabitants. The people that say that are not the original inhabitants. The original inhabitants are the Native Americans. So the only people that can actually say that are Native Americans, the first people. They legitimately can say, "Go back to your country," whether it's Europe or wherever. But the first peoples, they noticed these salmon runs, and they revered the salmon runs as part of the culture, as part of the stories. They're from what I've learned, I don't know very much about Native American culture, but I have learned that there were strict rules about how to sustainably harvest salmon. And if someone broke the rules, there was a collective punishment, essentially an ostracization of that person, because the salmon are that valuable. Like if you just ate all the salmon that came up the river, they wouldn't be able to reach their spawning grounds. They would not be able to lay eggs. There would be no baby salmon the next year. No more salmon would come back. The ecosystem, the forest, the insects, the birds, the rodents, the other fishes, well, they would get sick. So would the people. So, they figure this out, that we got to protect the salmon. We can eat them too, but we got to have some rules about how much we can eat. Because we got to make sure that they live, because they bring life. The mommy and daddy salmon bring life to everybody, including us, humans. Well, I remember reading a story that of an example of breaking the rule, and that this one person ate a lot more salmon than they were allowed to, for that season. Hello. And so what happened? Well, the other villagers took, essentially took the domesticated animals of that person away. Hello. Beautiful dog.
Nice puppy.
Oh yeah, she's very, very aggressive though. Everyone thinks that Doobie is like just a really gentle dog, and and I always hold her leash really tight around other dogs, and then I keep her away from other dogs, and then they're always like, "Oh, my dog's friendly," as if it's all about them. But I guess Doobie does look disarmingly cute and adorable, but she is a feisty one. But it really gets me. Like, they're like, "Oh, my dog is friendly," and then I say, "Oh, my dog's not friendly," and they're like, "Oh no, my dog, she's really good with little dogs," and I'm like, I don't care about what your dog's good at. I'm telling you, my dog's going to get all up in your dog's face. It's not all about you. I love this dog. And she loves me too. I really appreciate living with her. I don't know what she's smelling. These are salal leaves. There are some miner's lettuce, which I ate on the last video. Good source of vitamin C. Miners ate it because to prevent scurvy. Salal has really yummy berries. You can see the flowers. There's some green flowers right there. They'll turn into these purple, blue, black berries that taste like cinnamon, like a blueberry pie that someone put too much cinnamon in is really yummy, actually. But Native Americans use salal. It's a very important plant. And then there's salmon berry over here, and then there's sword fern, which this is an evergreen fern, and the roots have a rhizome that you can roast, but you have to kill the plant to get that, and you can't really eat the leaves. So this is like a survival food. Like if it's the winter time, because they're evergreen, you can see them in the winter time. You can dig them up and then harvest the rhizomes and roast them. But I heard it's a subsistence food. It's so like if all else had failed. Now, this one I think is dock, but it's got very high oxalate content. So if you eat too much of it, you'll get sick. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Oh, this one's called stinky herb Robert or something. I've never tried it. Apparently it's stinky, but it also was used as an herb by some monk Robert. I think that's the correct name. All right, where was I? Well, we were talking about if someone breaks the rules about sustainability of harvesting the salmon. Same thing with like these plants, like these miner's lettuce. If I ate all the miner's lettuce in this square meter, well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different plants here. Then it'd probably become barren of miner's lettuce. But let's just say I ate like 2 out of every 5 plants I saw, and I walked over here and I ate 2 out of 5 plants. Well, there's still a lot of miner's lettuce that's going to grow back next year. Yeah, besides, I probably would get pretty sick of eating greens if I ate 2 out of 5 miner's lettuce plants every square meter there. That'd be a full salad. Well, there were very specific rules about how much salmon you can harvest and when, for good reason, because they bring life from the ocean. Literally, their life, they're bringing life for everybody in the forest, deep into the land. Well, now we're going to fast forward to 1800s. 1800s. What happens then? Well, there are American settlers looking for gold in the mountains of California. Gold diggers, literal gold diggers. In fact, the name miner's lettuce comes from miners looking for gold, and they would bring like a supply of grains, but they would get scurvy because they wouldn't have vitamin C. So the miner's lettuce is named after the miners. These people that came out into the mountains looking for gold. And they figured out if they ate that, they could get the vitamin C so they don't get scurvy. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's salmonberry. And I learned about, I saw this one in a video a couple of videos ago. That's called Indian plum. Now, I don't think you can actually eat that one because I read that the plant has cyanide. Cyanide is no good for the human. Now I don't know if you can eat the flesh of it, but I'm not messing with it. What I read was that it can be accidentally ingested and then you can get cyanide poisoning. I mean, cyanide is like what spies put in their like fake tooth to like break their fake tooth and then like bite into it and then they die. At least in Mission Impossible. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are like cyanide suicide pills or something. But yeah, I like Mission Impossible. Oh, the new one's really good, by the way. I really liked I saw it last week, and I really like it because it's talking about AI and how tricky AI is and how it can divide people and like how you could really get messed up with AI. But in the movie, the AI, okay, this is becoming a digression. So I'm going to just finish real quick and go back to the river. In the movie, AI is its own entity with its own selfish motivations. But in reality, I think AI is controlled by humans with their own selfish motivations for more power, more power, more destruction, more stuff for themselves at the expense of everyone else. So in real life, AI is a very powerful tool that is being used to continually subjugate people, extract the life force energy from them, and the life force energy from the land and all the living creatures that we share the land with. All right, going back to the river. Well, actually, this kind of fits. The people that started hurting the river were the ones looking for gold. Why are they looking for gold? Gold, you can't eat gold. You can't plant gold and have a beautiful plant or tree come up. Why are they coming? Why are they coming and digging into the mountain for gold? Yeah, it's a different way of life, a different way of thinking about a relationship between people and other people and other living forms. With gold, in this way of life, in this culture's way of life, you have power over other people and beings, plants, insects, animals, rivers, forests. So if you find gold, it gives you power. Power. More power. That's what they want. They want more. More. I can't get enough. that's the people that came and dammed the river. They built 4 dams in the mountainous parts of the Klamath River to generate electricity to power the towns. They massacred the Shasta people. Now there's 4 different tribes: the Shasta, the Yurok, I wrote it down because I don't know these names. I want to look it up because it's important. The Yurok, the Karuk, and Klamath tribe. Okay, that one I should have remembered because the river is called Klamath. Those 3 tribes, and then a 4th one, the Shasta. Now the Shasta are not recognized by the U.S. government because they were massacred to essentially almost extinction. But there are still Shasta people here. So there's 4 tribes. Well, the people living along this river were killed and massacred. There's a cave that was in the mid-1800s where about 50 individuals were hiding, and they were found. They took shelter in this cave, but then they were found, and many of them killed. It's a pretty sordid history of people coming looking for gold and power over other people, and just killing people. And then damming the river, and then what that does, when you dam the river backs up, and it floods. It creates like a man-made lake. But the stuff that was on the riverbanks now is underwater. The trees, the animals, the insects, the fungi, the people, the villages, they're underwater now. The salmon cannot get up the dams. Now, some dams have fish ladders, but I've seen fish ladders. It's not the same. It's not the same as swimming up a river. Native Americans have a monster, kind of like how we have a monster called the vampire. Native Americans have a monster called the Wendigo. I really like this monster. I liked monsters stories because I think that these monsters, whether they're werewolf or zombie or vampire, I think they really are speaking about humans and the dark side of our human nature that we don't like to acknowledge. I really like monster stories. I find them fascinating. Well, a Wendigo is a human that develops a ravenous appetite. And they consume everything, including other humans, so becomes a cannibal. But the more that they eat, the more hungry that they get, but also the bigger they get. So they get bigger, but they stay hungry, which means they have to keep eating even more and more and more. And they're eating people, eating more people, murdering them, eating their bodies, and they get bigger. The Wendigos get bigger. But they're always hungry, so they got to eat more. But this also gives them an immortality of sorts. They don't die like other people, but they live this existence of just having to kill continuously and never being satisfied. It sounds pretty scary. Honestly, to live like that sounds horrible. I'm looking for the other trail. I've done this before, and I missed the trail entrance on the other end. Must have missed it. I don't like walking underneath these high voltage power lines. You can hear the buzzing of the electricity. It can't be good. Plus, they spray creosote and other herbicides to. Creosote is in wood, but they spray herbicides to try to keep the plant life down underneath these. Yeah, I definitely missed the path. Baby girl, let's go back this way. Good girl. Yeah, so I think for a couple of reasons, these high voltage lines, they have electromagnetic fields around them that are not good for our health. And then there's a bunch of chemicals that are sprayed here that are also toxic to life. Why do humans do this? Because we want power. This is literally power, electricity. Well, the settlers killed off a lot of the Native Americans and built dams that drowned a lot of villages underwater, and then blocked up the river for salmon. So salmon could not get up where they normally go to lay their eggs. Salmon started dying off. All the life that depend on the salmon, they get weaker because they don't have the nutrients coming in from the ocean that they relied on, the nitrogen, phosphorus from the ocean. That's the insects, the plants, the birds, the other fish. I'm going to show you something that's really cool. This is an intermission. This foam here that's on this plant, and on that plant, and on that plant, you can see little white. Inside that foam is a bug. It's called a frog hopper. Here's some more. All these little white spots here. I've sat before and sprayed some of that foam off, but inside is a little bug. That bug's pretty cool. What it's doing is it's sucking the watery, nutrient-filled blood of the plant. If you can imagine blood of a plant, it's not red like our blood, but it's carrying a bunch of nutrients. And the frog hopper bites into the plant and sucks the blood out to grow bigger, to feed itself. And it blows bubbles around itself to encase itself in this foam. And that foam, it tastes and smells bad to predators. And it also gives them a blanket to stay moisturized and to stay cool in the heat. Yes, I definitely missed the turn here. I went left. Oh no. Huh. It does go this way. The other cool thing about that plant, that bug, is that it, baby girl, is that it can jump really high. It's only like a few millimeters long, I think like 4 or 5 millimeters long, but it can jump a meter high. And when it jumps, it has more G-force than an astronaut being launched into space. Or a fighter pilot executing a high G-force turn. These insects are pretty cool. All right, that's an intermission. Just cool fact of life that's around here. There's a lot of interesting things outside. Well, the rivers are dammed. They become unhealthy. The salmon die off. The people the original people, the first people, they were murdered. Their way of life dies off. They're still around. But the people that came to look for gold, for power, who dammed up the river for power, they multiply. All right, there's another cool insect that's here. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a spider web that looks kind of like a dome. You may not be able to see it very well, but I don't know, maybe it'll show up. It's right in the middle of the screen. In that dome, there's a spider, a female spider that builds. Oh, we got a big. Okay, baby girl, come here. Come here. Hey, come here. Come here. We got a big animal. Come here. Baby, come here. Come here. Here. We're gonna wait here. We're gonna wait. No. Wait here. Yep. Okay. All right. There's a spider that lives in that dome, and it likes to have sex for like many hours. So when a male comes, the male has to do foreplay and have sex with the female for like, I think it's like 10 or 12 hours. And a lot of male spiders die because the sex is too intense. And so only the strong are actually able to mate and survive. That's that spider makes a dome in it with this web. So it's a pleasure dome. Another weird fact that Gooby knows, that I know about insects that live here. And now I shared it with you. Actually, I've shared it in videos before, but I'm not sure if someone's seen. Sometimes if you watch a lot of these videos, you might be like, man, he repeats himself a lot. But like I don't know how many people are new to this video or new to the recent videos, and they hadn't seen the videos before, so that's why I repeat myself on a number of things. Especially if something's really cool, like a pleasure dome with spiders that like to have sex for many hours, or like little bugs that act like vampires on plants and then suck the blood out of the plants, and they blow bubbles with it that creates a blanket around them, and they can like jump and sustain G-forces more than a fighter pilot can. Yeah, that's pretty damn cool. Well, okay, so let's go back to the river. Yeah. So the Wendigo, so the Wendigo is a Native American monster for someone who has an insatiable greed, hunger for destruction, which is a very apt description of our culture. Like when I say our, I'm talking about the culture of modern civilization. Actually, not just modern, just this particular way of life of not living in harmony with the land, but thinking that we're apart from it, different from it, separate from it, and that that the rest of nature is other, that needs to be subjugated and controlled and destroyed and milked and usurped for our advantage. But the sad thing about that is that we're not actually apart, we're not actually separate, we're integral to everything. You know, we've only been around for 0.3 million years out of all of the land animals that have been around for 390 million years. We've only been around for 0.3. We're not separate from everything. We're integrally tied to everything else. And so this way of life is the Wendigo way of life that the Native Americans talk about. The monster that destroys itself. It seeks eternity by destroying the lives of all the other humans and living beings around it. And just making itself bigger and bigger and bigger, but it's not even happy doing it. It's insane. Well, that's a Wendigo. And that's us. That's what built the 4 dams on the river. Well, if the story ended there, it wouldn't be much different than all the other rivers that have been dammed up. But this story is different, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. So the Yurok, the Klamath, I forget, well, the Shasta people, but the Shasta are not recognized by the government. Karuk tribe. And several scientific groups, nature groups, and the state of California worked with the power company who owned the 4 dams. And these dams were built in like the 1800s, early 1900s. They're old, and they were aging. Well, these Native American groups and other groups, environmental groups, and the state got together to dismantle the 4 aging dams, to restore the river to its original flow in that area. Now, this comes with a big asterisk, because the way that this story is being told is that like all the dams got removed, but that's not true. If you look further up the river, if you just look at Google Maps, if you look into the Oregon part of the Klamath, there are these big dams and reservoirs and huge irrigation channels going to lots of farmland. So this comes with a big asterisk. But in the mountainous region of California, where the river runs to go to the ocean, the 4 dams were removed. That removed the areas that flooded, like the reservoirs, the man-made lakes. And so that returned land that could not be used because it was underwater. And so that land's being returned to the tribes, the respective tribes. Salmon are now swimming upstream past where the dams were. I camped there last fall at a campground called Tree of Life Campground, which on the Klamath. It was very beautiful. I didn't see any salmon. I got there to the campground late and I had to leave in the morning. But it was gorgeous. Saw the Milky Way. It was a beautiful night. So many stars, probably the most stars I've seen in recent memory. It must have been a new moon. No, it was a new moon. It was a new moon, and there were so many stars just all the way across the sky. The Milky Way went from one end to the other. It was gorgeous. And it's called Tree of Life Campground, and there was these beautiful trees there. I didn't see salmon, but it made me happy to know that the salmon were able to come up there. And they have been seen, just not by me, swimming up there and bringing the life-giving nutrients from the ocean upstream for all the life, all the trees, fishes, insects, birds, plants, trees. I already said trees, bushes, fungi. Here's a salmon berry. We're gonna have some of this. Now, I like berries because I don't have to kill the plant to enjoy this berry. In fact, well, if I was pooping outside, the plant would probably like it if I ate the berry, because then the seeds would be distributed elsewhere. but I don't have to kill the plant to enjoy what it has to offer. This is a huckleberry plant, but I don't see any huckleberries on it yet. It's not quite time. I really like huckleberries. I'm looking forward to that time. It's coming up probably next month. Well, that's a pretty cool story. So some humans have reversed the damages put on by our Wendigo spirit inside of us. They have undone some of that. Now, here's where the asterisk comes into play. When you look up further from the... Oh, well, okay, first I want to say there are 4 different dams. One of them is called Iron Gate. You can't get more like Wendigo spirit than that. Iron Gate. I am human and I have power, and I'm going to keep things out. I'm going to keep nature out. I'm going to control her. I'm going to use her with my Iron Gate. That was the name of one of the dams. Well, it's gone now, thanks to the hard work of a lot of people. Now, can that be done everywhere? Should it be done everywhere? So this is where the asterisk comes into play. Well, we have an addiction to electricity, to fossil fuel energy, to energy in general, nuclear energy, renewable energy, any energy that we can get our hands on, despite the negative consequences of damming a river, of burning fossil fuels and letting CO2, methane, other greenhouse gases warm our atmosphere and make an unstable climate. More berries. Here. They're ripe now. So oh wow, there's a lot of them here. Now I'm not killing these plants, so I can eat as many berries. Well, I should leave some berries to fall. So I'm just let that one fall down. Here's the salal flowers coming up. That's the one that has like a blueberry pie that someone dumped too much cinnamon in. It's really yummy. Here's a different colored salmon berry. This one has more red and orange and yellow. It's like, ooh, it's like perfume. That was really good. So the asterisk part. We have this addiction to power, electricity, to fuel, fossil fuels, nuclear energy. To do what? Like, what are we doing with it? What are we doing with all this electricity and fossil fuel energy and nuclear power? Well, we're making a ton of plastic, just creating like forever chemicals and chemicals that mess up our endocrine system, choke off wildlife, choke ourselves off. We make pesticides, herbicides to kill. What else do we do with it? Well, mainly we feed ourselves, and we feed the animals that we then eat to feed ourselves. There's 8.2 billion people on this planet because of that, because we're able to grow a lot of food. What else do we do with it? Well, we make a bunch of trash. Do you remember, I don't know if you remember these like little finger spinner widget things, or fidget spinners or something? Well, that's probably just sitting in a bunch of landfills around the world. make a whole bunch of plastic crap. What else do we do with energy? Well, we shoot each other and bomb each other. Well, we have lights. Lights are pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be able to see in the dark by lighting it up without having to like carry a torch around. I guess. Oh, sorry, girl. Hey, baby girl. No. A little gremlin. That's a gremlin sound. Okay. See, she looks. Gremlins, I think, look kind of cute too, until they get scary. Hi. Oh man, her gremlins sound like made me lose track of where I am. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, I don't remember. That's okay. We were talking about the asterisks. Oh, yeah, power. Addiction to power. Wendigo. More. I want more. Oh yeah, plastic stuff. Plastic crap. What are we doing with all this stuff? All this power that we're using. We're wasting it on fidget spinners. We're literally burning it by racing cars in a circle. How idiotic is that? The rich people get to build big boats and fly everywhere. Hi. We get to drive cars. Yeah. The point I'm trying to make is like, do we actually need to be doing all that stuff? Also, do we need 8.2 billion people on this planet? I'm not for killing people, just want to make that clear. But I'm also not for having way too many people consuming way too much on this planet that has finite resources. I think that we should degrow voluntarily, or else we're going to involuntarily have to degrow. We can voluntarily decrease our population, or it will happen to us. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but I may be right too. Let's see here. So, talked about the Wendigo power. Yeah, okay, so now it comes to the asterisks. Why was this river allowed to have the four of the dams removed? Why? Wow, that's a huge win, Gooby. That's a huge win for people who care about nature. It is. It is a huge win. It's a huge win for the salmon. It's a huge win for all the life forms that live along that river. It's a huge life form for the first peoples that were killed and massacred. And their descendants that have survived and live in the area still. It's a huge win. Why was it allowed to happen? That seems like it doesn't really follow the pattern of the Wendigo spirit that wants to keep devouring. Well, just look at the map. That is a really rugged part of the country. There are not big cities there. There's hardly any lights at nighttime. I mentioned that I stayed at a campground, Tree of Life campground, and that's probably the most stars I've seen in recent memory. It was a new moon, but the other part of it was there were no big cities around. There was no light pollution. Why is that? It's a very, very rugged part of the country. That river runs through these very steep, rugged mountains. You cannot grow a bunch of food there. You cannot have this fossil fuel driven totalitarian agriculture in those mountains. Well, at least at a large scale. So there's no big cities. There's no billions of people living in those mountains. If there were flat lands that had forests and the forests were cut down and there was fertile soil, this would have never been allowed to happen. But because this land is not that valuable to the Wendigo spirit, it was like, okay, well, you can have that. Now, if you look upriver in Oregon, there's massive areas of flat land. There are still structures that are managing the flow of the Klamath River and keeping huge reservoirs and lakes. From these reservoirs and lakes, there are large channels, irrigation channels, that are supplying water to immense amounts of farmland. There are towns where people live, bigger towns. Now, will those reservoirs and lakes and irrigation channels and dams up there be allowed to be removed? I don't think so. I don't think they'll ever be allowed to be removed. I think the only way that they'll be removed is when this civilization crumbles and the dams crumble on their own from not being maintained. Because those waterways serve the Wendigo spirit inside of us. Well, that is my story about a river reborn and the asterisk that applies to that, and the Wendigo spirit that is this culture that lives inside of us, in our minds, our souls. Bye. Oh, I did remember there was a very interesting comment from a viewer named Horatio Roman. I think he goes by the handle Horatio Romantic. But he said that maybe we could reframe the story from a story of trying to achieve infinite growth, which obviously we cannot, to reframing it to a story of infinite sustainability. Just like the Native Americans understanding the salmon runs and how important they are to the health and life of every life form that lives along the riverbanks, including humans. And forming rules to be able to eat salmon, but protect them too, and make sure that they continue to live and we can live too. That's a shifting of the mindset of the soul, really. It's a discarding of the Wendigo spirit. It's an exorcism, actually, of the Wendigo spirit to allow for a different way of thinking, a different way of relating to each other, ourselves, the life forms we share this planet with. I really like that. So thanks, Horatio Roman. Appreciate it. Changing our mindset from mindset of infinite growth to infinite sustainability. Bye.